Good morning, everyone, and welcome to OATC and Microsoft's M365 webinar series. I'm Stephen Yamada, OATC's Director of Member Operations. Today's session will cover new IT administrator onboarding for the M365 Admin Portal and will be presented by Eric Horman, Technical Specialist on the Education team at Microsoft. This session is being recorded and will be sent out later this week. There will be time for a Q&A at the end. I'll also take a quick moment to highlight OATC's renewals team, some of whom are on today's webinar. If you have any licensing questions, you can reach out to help@oetc.org and someone from the team will be happy to assist you. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Eric.
Well, hello, everyone. I see there's still some people joining. I wanted to first introduce myself. So my name is Eric Horman. I'm a technical specialist on the U.S. education team, and my primary role has been helping customers onboard to the Microsoft platform. I've been helping them deploy Teams, deploy Office, help them with Intune, device management, or config manager, how to cloud connect that, kind of all of that specific things. And so today, what we wanted to cover is, hey, I'm a new customer, or maybe I'm an existing customer, and I'm just beginning my journey in the Microsoft ecosystem. And so what I'm going to cover today is an overview of the M365 Admin Portal. Again, so today is primarily a tech-focused. I am not a salesman. I'm a technical specialist. So think of me as like a mechanic. Like you go to a car dealership, I'm like the mechanic. I'm the guy in the back that knows everything about the car, tells you how to run. But if you want to buy the car, you got to go talk to the guy up front. So I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to explain how stuff works. So real important to me is, as I'm explaining things, I think I do a pretty good job. I talk fast often. So use the chat. Feel free to use the chat. At the end of the call, I'll have an opportunity for you to unmute your microphone and we'll be able to verbally ask questions. Sometimes I'll be talking and I'll see your chat and I'll say, hey, I'll answer that at the end, or however. So I would like this to be an engaged conversation. Your time's valuable, my time's valuable. So let's make the best of both of our worlds here. So feel free to, again, use that chat. I encourage you to use the chat. Maybe I put out there a, hey, everyone has to ask at least one question. That's a good thing because means you're engaged on that. So that's kind of what we have. If you're new and familiar with Teams or unfamiliar with Teams and how to use it, it's pretty kind of simple in the terms of it. So you can see my screen right here. Up at the top, or maybe it's down at the bottom. If you click on the little bubble up there, that's where the chat shows up. And so, Renan just posted something and, like I could say, hello from Eric, and you just type it and you can post it in there and you can see everyone else's chats. So that's the easiest way to kind of ask those chat questions. I know a lot of people use other products like Zoom and WebEx and those. So it's always good to have kind of an understanding, hey, Mike, of how to use the platform in that. And so we'll be able to verbally ask questions, but keep using the chat throughout the rest of this session. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first place after you get access to your M365 Admin Portal, and everyone should have access to this M365 Admin Portal. And when I say that, that's the easiest way is admin.microsoft.com. This is, and the top left says Microsoft 365 Admin Portal. This is your top level administrative portal. Think of this as your account, your central account for all of your Microsoft licensing. There is a separate portal, the MVLS site, Microsoft Volume Licensing site, where many of you may have gone to get your licenses. The difference between those is the MVLS site is specifically for what we had traditionally called our classic on-premise products, like where you would go to get Office and your product keys for Office, which is activated via KMS, or sometimes you would download Windows from there, or if you had purchased on-premise products like your RDS CALs or those particular things, you would go to your MVLS site. The M365 Admin is primarily geared towards all of your online services and products. So everything that you purchase, so Exchange Online and those. So one of the first things that I always like to tell customers about is all education organizations get quite a bit for free. They get Office 365 A1. That is a licensing that all accredited education organizations get. So with that is you would come to this admin center in order to provision and get access to those. I'm not going to go into kind of a quick thing of licensing. I will talk about it because we're going to talk about how to do licensing assignment, but really key to understand is Office 365 A1 is what you get for free. The first thing that most customers purchase in terms of after that is M365 A3. That is kind of their first pack in that. And so there's a lot of value that you get out of that A3. I'm happy to talk about that later on, but I really want to focus just on, hey, what you get for free. And because you get Office 365 A1, you get access to this admin portal. You get access to Exchange Online, which has unlimited data repository. You get access to Teams. You get access to Office on the web. You get access to OneDrive for Business, which gives you unlimited storage. You get access to what else? SharePoint. You get access to a lot of value that Microsoft gives away. And so again, you come to this admin center and this is the primary point for that. So I could talk about A3 and a lot of other things later on. Thank you, Renan. She posted a link to the service descriptions on that. And if you want me to kind of talk about what A3 is and what products and services are in that, again, I'll cover that at the end. I'll leave about 10 minutes left in the meeting to talk about stuff. So kind of the first place, I've helped numerous customers over this last year onboard to M365, for Teams or for device management and everything. So once you get access to this, I'll give you an orientation here. On the top left is kind of these high-level nodes, and then there's a line, and the bottom left are what we call our sub, or what I call is our sub admin portal. So there's a security, a compliance, endpoint manager, that's Intune or Microsoft Endpoint Manager, Azure Active Directory. That's where all of your identity for your users and devices exist. Just like on-premise, you have your Active Directory. That's where when you deploy Windows Server, you create Active Directory, your users and devices are there. In the cloud world, it's called Azure Active Directory. Exchange Online, self-explanatory, SharePoint, Teams. So these are all sub-admin portals down here, and I'll get to that, kind of just giving you a high-level overview. So the first thing that most people, as they get access to this portal, or if you don't have access to this portal, or if you are locked out of this portal, contact support, or feel free to shoot me your email. Support will take a little bit longer, but I can walk you through getting access to this or helping you re-get access to this. It takes like less than 10 minutes in terms of that. So if you're not able to get to this, happy to walk you through that. That's kind of my contribution back to helping you out in terms of that. So the first thing that I want to kind of look at, and I'm going to jump through this, is really around in the billing. And you go down to the licenses node. In here, you'll see a list of all of your licenses. This is my tenant. This is just the licenses that I have enabled in my specific tenant. Yours will look differently because you have different licenses. So this is where you go to see what licenses you have, how many of them, and also shows how many are assigned. So it's always good. And again, everyone should have Office 365 A1. I don't, because this is a demo tenant. And so I don't have that one in particular here, but you should have Office 365 A1, and you should have unlimited access to those licenses for all faculty, staff, and students in terms of your organization. So that's kind of the first place. The next is purchase services. So if you ever want to try any licenses in Microsoft, so you want to try A3, you want to try A5, you want to try Teams telephony, you want to try whatever. There are free trials available to you. My screen keeps flipping out. I'm on an early release of the portal, and so it oftentimes will go into like a revert mode. But in here, you'll see that a lot of these have trial next to it. So if you want to try A5 trial, let me get kind of a good one in here. Microsoft Intune for Education. Here's a trial. And basically, those are 30-day trials. So you could pretty much start any trial, and those trials can be extended based upon your evaluation cycle. Just contact your Microsoft representative, and they can increase that trial. But pretty much all Microsoft products, is available for a self-service. So basically, if I want to try this out, you can click trial, and then it'll walk you through a try now. You don't have to pay anything. It's just going to give you 3 months. Or some of them are this is a 3-month. Most of them are like 60 or 30 days. I'd say more on the 30 days side of things. So again, free to try on all of that. It's always great to test drive things as you evaluate, but that's where you go to see your licenses. That's where you go to purchase. You could purchase them here, but if you want to actually go through here and give things a try on that. But the key point being is available to try anything, and that is super awesome. So those are your licenses. That's always kind of the first thing that I always like to verify and test as I go through customers, showing them what they have, because that'll depend upon kind of your next steps. The second thing is I'm going to, you always start a tenant with a default domain. It's always something like onmicrosoft.com. And they make you create this kind of a placeholder domain, and you get identity associated with that. But that's not the identity that you want to have, because you have your own school identity. Call it, let's say, contoso.edu. I'll use Contoso as the name of my school district. So Contoso, actually in mine, I call it Duval Schools. So duvalschools.edu. So it's like, how do I get my custom domain name into this M365? Because I want to create users, joe@contoso.edu, and assign email to them. And so probably that's the second thing that customers, after we always get our licenses, is how do I get my custom domain added? There's a couple of workflows in here. If you go into setup, it'll actually prompt you to walk you through setting up that. But actually, the way I like to do it is come down to the Azure Active Directory node down here. And so I'm going to go to the Azure AD portal. And again, this is one of those sub portals in here. I click on Azure Active Directory, and it's going to show me everything that's involved. So users, it's going to show me all the users that I have in there. Azure AD groups, it's going to show me devices, all of my devices that are connected to Azure. It's going to be listed in there. I've got a whole bunch because I'm always doing stuff. But in here, if you come down to custom domain names, this is where you can add your own domain name. And it's pretty darn simple in terms of to add. So you just click add custom domain, and you can come up here and say Duval home. Well, I'm just picking something random, but basically you input your domain over here, you click add domain, and then it's going to give you some DNS records that you're going to have to input, like GoDaddy or Gator, or whatever DNS that you're using. You're going to have to add this TXT or MMX record in order to verify it. And so once you add this TXT record into your DNS, the next thing is come back here and click this verify button at the very, very bottom. And that's where Microsoft will go out and do a DNS check. And if you've properly inputted those, then it will come back as verified and you're good. I will warn you that once you input this into a DNS, it may take an hour, or if not 2 hours, in order to for that to be do that verification. So if you enter them in really quick and you come back here to verify, it may not work. So be patient, probably input them in your DNS, come back a few hours later after lunch or the next day, and then click verify. So back there, once you have it verified, so like here's the example I have of duvalschools.com. This is the custom one that I created. So I went and purchased it from GoDaddy. I had added it. It's now verified. And I listed this as my primary. So what you'll want to do after you get it verified is click this button that says make primary. Otherwise, you're on Microsoft one, which is like, here's mine. It says duvalschool.onmicrosoft.com. That was that placeholder one that gets created, is listed in there. As you can see, I have a whole lot of them. There's actually, and a lot of them are unverified because I'm always giving like these demos and stuff like that. Whoops, I'll do this later. So once you add the root, like where it says duvalschools.com, you can actually automatically add, oh, that's a wrong one, Duval Schools, and it's verified. You can add subdomains like groups.duvalschools.com. You don't have to go through a verification process any of that. So if I wanted to add a domain like that, and I say like pta.duvalschools.com, I could simply just add that domain, and it's automatically going to be verified because I have the root already in there. So where is it? PTA. It's up at the top. It's already been verified because I own the root. But if you don't own the root in here, then you have to go through that same MX record thing. So really key is once you have your identity, your domain associated in here, that's when the fun starts because you have licenses and you have your identity. Now we can actually go out and create users. And there's a couple of different ways of creating users. While I'm here, I can go up to users here and click new user and go through this flow right here of creating a new user. This is in the Azure Active Directory portal. Or what I really like to do is create users in the M365 Admin Portal. And so let me actually show you that workflow. And so this is a way of adding a single user. I'm going to explain how to add multiple users here after this, but let me walk you through just creating a single new user. So click add new user, it's gonna a couple new names. And so I need a name. Elise, Armin, and then Elise. And then here is, as you can see, I have all of my domains. I could even, there's even PTA Duval Schools if I wanted to add that particular one, or Duval Schools. So that's where I was showing you first, you had to go in and add your custom domain, because when you create your users, then you have access to create them with your with these domains. If you didn't, then the only option you would have is that on Microsoft one. And that's not very friendly. You want to be able to use your well-known, recognizable school domain, not this on Microsoft one. So that's why it's always important to verify your licenses and then get your custom domain added. So showed you guys how to do that. So in here, I'll just create one with this. You can automatically create password in here. You could require users to change it when they first log on. Click next. And in here, you can do licensing assignment. So this is a way of doing a direct license assignment. So I could pick, I don't know, this person, let's say a student. So here they have the A5 license. And down at the bottom, I could click apps. And A5 has a whole lot of products and services. M365 A5 is the top level Microsoft licensing pack. So think of it as the premium, it's the Big Mac, it's the Mega Combo. It has every Microsoft product in it. So that's why there's a whole bunch. But if you didn't want to have certain things, you can come in through and turn certain products and services off if you wanted to, doing that, and just click next. In terms of roles, their M365 Admin Center has role-based access control. So most organizations, the K-12s, pretty much everyone's going to be a global admin. So they have kind of powers to do administration across everything. Once you get into like high education and those, they have very decentralized operations. They have a team that just does Exchange, and another maybe that does Teams, and another one that does device management. And so they'll assign roles based upon that, and even a security role. So most of the time in here, so there's a lot of different roles in here. So these are kind of some of the top ones. So I can make it a global admin, but for the sake of this demo, I'm not going to show you anything. Then profile information, again, just all attributes of it. I would encourage you always to list a mobile phone number. That way we can do self-service password recovery in there. Click finish adding, and that's how you add a specific user. You can even do an email template. So if they have an existing an email provider, I don't know, maybe using Google or something, or using an on-premise or another product, and you're going to eventually migrate to M365, you can email them their username and password for that, and close, and that's it. And so it added that particular user into this list right there, and so you're able to see what they have. So if I click on that particular user, it's going to show me various information over on this right-hand side in the blade, like their username, last sign in, sign out, alternate email, their roles, their groups, their manager, various. It's a snapshot of a high level. Let me actually show you a cool one that has like data in it. So this is the main one that I use. As you can see, it's global what shows some of the groups I'm in, my alternate email address, last sign in, display names, office activations. If I come up, there's a couple of tabs across the top, devices. It's going to show me all the devices that I have associated with that account. So these are Intune managed devices that I've set up. So I use my demo tenant to manage my home computers. It's always a way of getting devices in there. So my daughter's iPad and different things. Licenses and app, you can see what licenses are assigned to me, and you can edit and change those. So as simple as clicking on these if I want to, and then edit them, the product and services down here. So it's a way of doing what we call direct licensing assignment. Speaking of there's two ways of doing licensing assignment: a direct, where you go to a specific user, just like here, you can click on the licenses and change them. The other way I'm going to show you is what we call group-based licensing assignment, which is actually the preferred and best way. So we'll get to that here shortly. But anyway, this is licensing. Mail, this is going to just show you some snapshots of their Exchange Online in there, and then OneDrive, snapshot of the OneDrive data that they have. And here is where you can edit and change various information for them. So by default, everyone gets 1 terabyte of OneDrive for Business. You can increase that to 5 terabytes by default. And I had mentioned earlier that OneDrive for Business is unlimited. It is unlimited, it's just gated. It's gated based upon usage. So by default, everyone gets 5 terabytes. Once a user gets to 90% of that 5 terabytes, you can open a support ticket and they'll increase it to the next gate. But those gates are more, I call them gates because they're not blocking you. They're just based upon usage. So they're usage gates. So just once you hit 90% of that 5 terabytes, support will increase it to that next one. So what's really key, but I always encourage people to go out to the OneDrive Admin Center and increase the defaults from 1 terabyte to 5 terabytes. So again, kind of just overall, you could change photos here of people. People could self-service that, but that's always fun to be able to. I live outside of Seattle, so that's why I have a Seahawks. Born and raised in Washington, so I'm a diehard fan of them. So that's always my kind of logo that I have. So that's kind of single snapshot. That's an easy way of how to create a user, how to do direct licensing supported. If you want to bulk add users, there's a couple of different ways. There's really 2 ways of doing that. So I'm going to go back to the Azure Admin Portal. So on the far left, I'm going to go down to Azure Active Directory. And back in here, Active Directory. And I'm going to scroll down to where it says Azure AD Connect. So if you have an on-premise Active Directory, which pretty much everyone does, you can install the Azure AD Connect tool, and it will synchronize the users and devices from on-premise Active Directory into Azure Active Directory. So you don't have to go through this process of creating individual new people or anything. It'll synchronize those users. And in fact, that is the easiest. It takes less than like 30 minutes. You got to download it. It's like 71 megabytes. Run it on I usually encourage you on your, not your primary, but maybe a secondary or even a backup domain controller. And that connector will run every 30 minutes, synchronizing users. It'll synchronize the passwords of your on-premise users into Azure Active Directory. And I have this set up here. So it's synchronized less than an hour ago here. I'm also synchronizing the passwords, which is awesome. That provides me single sign-on capabilities. And it's the easiest way of getting your existing domain joined users and its devices to be Azure connected. Think of it as cloud connected. So that's very, very simple to do. I'm not going to show it in this. When you go to this node here, there'll be a link to download the Azure AD Connect. If you do that, go through the Express setup. I'll say it again, Express setup. Don't go through the advanced setup because it's going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. And then you're going to probably answer them wrong, not because you of anything. It's just you get kind of down this choose your own adventure path, and then you got to call support, and then they got to help you turn things back on, where the express setup will go through and set up majority of everything that you need initially to get up and going. And so I encourage you to do the express setup if you're deploying that for the first time. If you already have it deployed, great. There's not really much else you need to do, but just it might not be synchronizing all of your users and devices. So you got to go back into that connector, and there's options to select which OU, organizational unit, to synchronize up into Azure AD. So anyway, the given point is Azure AD Connect helps you synchronize your users from on-premise up into Azure Active Directory. The other tool that we want to talk about is, where the world's at. I cover California and Hawaii as primary, and a lot of people in California, teachers, faculty, and staff, will have their users in Active Directory. So deploying the tool is great because it synchronizes them up into Azure AD. But a lot of schools, frankly, they might have their students using Chromebooks or their students using Google, and they create the student identity in Google. Like, how do I get it from Google over into Azure Active Directory? That's kind of one question. The other is, can I use the same username and password? And the answer to that question is yes. In fact, I think I have I've done a recording on this before that they could post on Google and Teams that kind of goes over the identity pieces of that. But either way, the primary point being is maybe you don't have everyone in on-premise Active Directory. What happens if their identity exists elsewhere? How do I get them all into Azure Active Directory so that you as an admin don't have to manually create all of them or PowerShell that? Well, we have this really awesome tool that we call School Data Sync. And the purpose of what School Data Sync is if you go to sds.microsoft.com, sometimes there's a link for it. If you come in here to the admin center and you come down to these all admin centers, I don't have it in mind for some reason. This is a demo tenant. They may have pulled it out, but there should be a link in here for School Data Sync. If there is not, then simply go to sds.microsoft.com and I'll paste that in chat. And so the whole point of SDS, when you come in here, I go to watch the video. I'm not going to play this for you because you can go and talk about it. But you've got these thing over there. The whole point of SDS is it's a connector between Azure Active Directory and your SIS. So if you're using, whatever SIS, it will, and you're doing all your rostering in your SIS. So all of your classes and also your students and faculty and staff, that's kind of your ultimate repository for all identity is an SIS. So think of this as a sync tools between your SIS and Azure Active Directory. So it'll synchronize your users over it. It'll actually do licensing assignment. It'll synchronize your teachers, faculty, and staff. It'll also synchronize your classes. So you're creating your classes, Mr. Pete's class, Mr. Johnson's 5th grade class, or even high school, whatever class rostering that you're doing, it'll synchronize those classes over and actually create a Microsoft team. On the back end of that is called a M365 group, but it creates those groups so that when you log on to Teams, they're automatically there. I'm not going to kind of go into that, but there's a lot of value of what SDS does besides just identity sync. So SDS is another great way of getting all of your users in there. And SDS is free. We do not charge for SDS at all. We actually don't even charge for helping you deploy it. So we provide a white glove service for SDS through our Fast Track program. It's our only Fast Track that's available to everyone. So if you have Office 365 A1, you need to set up SDS, open up a Fast Track request, and they'll help you do that. I'm going to cover Fast Track at the end, but Fast Track is an enablement service that helps you deploy the products that you purchase. So if you have A3, they're going to help you deploy, Teams and Intune and multi-factor authentication or Azure Active Directory Premium or conditional access or self-service password reset, or they'll help you deploy whatever you purchased. If you don't have a purchase licensing like A3 and you just have Office 365 A1, Fast Track will help you do school data sync also. So school data sync is available to all education organizations. And again, fasttrack.microsoft.com. While I'm just talking about it, I'll just go there. Fasttrack.microsoft.com. Yeah, that doesn't look. They changed the URL for it. Oh, okay. It was fasttrack.microsoft.com. But anyway, Radon just posted a link for it. Click sign in, go ahead and follow the prompts, and it will log you into your account. And then you go ahead and create a request for Fast Track and School Data Sync. I'm not going to walk you through that. The key point being is Fast Track is an enablement service that helps you onboard and deploy Microsoft products. The part of Fast Track that I really want to be clear is what's free is they'll help you if you have A1 with SDS. They're not going to help you with anything else unless you have A3, a purchase licensing pack for that. So understand kind of those key requirements. And when you purchase A3, you have to have more than 150 A3 faculty licenses on that. So a lot of that is described in this documentation here, but just really calling your attention out on that. So SDS, great way of getting your users that are external from your SIS into Azure Active Directory. And School Data Sync does a whole lot more. I'm not going to really cover that. I think we were talking before this session about having something specific to SDS, but SDS not only does it synchronize identity, creates those classroom teams through Microsoft Teams, it also, there's this whole new telemetry, analytics, and insights pipeline to measure education engagement that they've built. That's fabulous. They also have grade sync. They'll have learn to read. There's all of these continuing value props that we are building on top of school data sync. So I highly encourage to look at that. Again, go to sds.microsoft.com, watch the video, and there's some links in here to the documentation that walk you through how to do all of that. And again, totally free and available to you. This is cool, this new chart down here that they added in terms of what capabilities that they have. So that's how you get your identity. So we have access to our portal. We verified our licenses. We added our custom domains. We then how do we get our users in there? So the next thing is how do I assign licenses? So I showed you how to create a user and do a direct license assignment. But how do you do a group-based assignment? So I'm going to go back to Azure Active Directory. I don't know how to move this bar. It doesn't seem to, maybe it'll just go away. But Azure Active Directory. Back in here, again, Azure Active Directory is where all of your identity for your users, groups, and devices are stored. In here, if I come down to users, again, you'll see all my users. If I want to do a direct licensing assignment here, I can certainly do that. Like Elise, I can click on that was my person earlier. You can see a lot of the information. I can go to licenses over here on the left, and you can see that I did an assignment here. If I wanted to edit that, I can click on it and edit it and flip everything. You know, it's Microsoft. We've got like 5 different ways of doing everything. So you could do things through, you know, the M365 portal, the Azure AD portal. You could do it through, there's another portal that you could do. You could do it through PowerShell. You can do it through Graph. There's many different ways of doing it. I'm just showing you the graphical way through the popular admin portals for things. So, so that's the users where we do that. So let's show you group-based assignment. So here's a list of all of my groups. Now I want to call out, like I've got a whole bunch of them, like just a lot of different groups down here. And you can see here's their names and then the group type, security groups. Here's an M365 group. If I keep scrolling down, do I have any distribution groups? No, I didn't create any distribution groups, but it would show you all your distribution groups in here. And then membership type, is it assigned or is it dynamic? The difference is, and I'll show you here in a second, assigned is where you only people that you manually add, statically assign, will be members of that group. Dynamic means that there's a query associated with it. So let's say AAA, I think the query on this one is all users that start with their name start with the letter A will be added to that group. So it's dynamic in the sense of it's dynamically based upon a query rule. And then the far right is the source. So if it's cloud, meaning I created it right here in Azure AD, I went up to this add new group and I created it to cloud group. If it says Windows Server AD, that means it was synchronized from on-premise through that connector I talked to you guys about. So that connector, I said it synchronized users, it synchronizes devices, it also synchronizes your groups. It does not synchronize OUs. So OU is a hierarchical kind of a construct. Those do not get synchronized over. So users, devices, and groups do. So security groups, distribution groups, those get synchronized over. And so if I look through this, here's a security group that gets synchronized over, Windows AD. I can't edit things in here. I don't have any devices in here. But what this allows you to do is, this is kind of a bad example in this one, but imagine this was your all staff or school. It was a security group you had on-prem. You could come into the licenses in here, click all licenses, and let's just say, you know, these licenses. Clicking too fast. There we go. Basically, I can click all those licenses, click save. There we go, top right, it's all good. As you can see, the license is assigned. So I have a group on premise, to call it teachers, faculty, and staff. It's been synchronized up. And just I've assigned these Office 365 A5 licenses to that group. So now all members of that group automatically get that license assigned. So you don't have to go individually. It's all at the group level. So all that you did is assign a license to the group. And all members of the group therefore get that license. So that's really, really easy to do. It's really easy because you get to reuse your existing investments that you've made in your on-premise security groups. Because otherwise, what you'll have to do is come in here and do new group, and we'll have to create a cloud group. So let me show you how to do that. OETC June 15th, I'll just call it that. You enter a name. Membership type, I talked to you about assigned or dynamic user or dynamic device. So assigned is very static. So if I click this, new members, it's going to open up picker over here on the left-hand side. And so I can pick like Elise and it'll be automatically added to that particular group. But I want to show you the dynamic user as this example. So I click add dynamic query. And this is where the query builder comes up. This is much like creating an email rule, kind of how the flow is. So you have your rules and or properties, operator, and value. So the easiest way is in here, you have all of these attributes. Now, these are user attributes that you have. So account enabled, object ID, display name. Yeah, let's do display name. Choose an operator. This is the if and or but equals not equals starts with. And so you can say display name starts with the letter E. And it's going to go through and it's going to add everyone. So that would be that user Elise that I just did, or Eric, or anybody that has the display name that starts with the letter E is going to be added to this. And I can click save. Also real cool is this validate rules option tab right here, where you can actually test to make sure it is. So in here, I can say add users. And so we'll just do Earl in here. It's a good example. It's going to go through and test. Oh, he's good. That means that that rule will successfully add Earl because his first name starts with E. But if I was in here and I did, that was a bad example. Here you go, Robert. Let's see here, X, because the dynamic rule says anybody with the display name of E. So key point being out of all of this, this validate rules is really cool if you happen to be using very complex rules in here. So you can add a couple of rules. I think it's 4. How many? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can add 5 expressions in here of creating those rules. But when you're all done, go back, click save, and basically hit create, and it's going to create that that group for you in there. And then you can go back and assign licenses to it. So that's group-based licensing that we have. So that's kind of the big things. That's where most people struggle with getting up and going in Microsoft, is really around, how do I get access to my tenant? The next question is, how do I add my domain? The third is, how do I do licensing assignment? Oh, actually, it's how do I get my users in there? And then how do I do licensing assignment? Because after that, I mean, literally, it's, you start using it. I mean, simple licensing assignment with the Exchange Online, boom, lights up Exchange. That's super simple for them. And then your end users could simply just navigate to, office.com. That's kind of their primary landing that they have, and they get access to see everything for their account over on the left-hand side. Everything from Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneDrive, Teams. There's just incredible amounts of value that they have here. And then even if you have A3, one of the things that are in A3 is the ability to download the full Office. And so end users can self-service install Office on their devices. They have 5 user licenses that they can use if you have A3. And so in here, they can click on Office 365, and it will download the full version of Office, Windows, or Mac, and you get 5 installs for that. Again, that's an A3 value prop, but just kind of showing you Office on this. So this is the easiest portal for your end users on that. All right, so that kind of goes. I'm going to take like a quick look at questions. All right, I'll answer those at the end. Okay. Keep going over here. So in the admin portal, I talked about users, devices. I'm not going to show here, groups, resources, billing. I already talked about your licenses, how to look at that. I already showed you guys how to try new licenses. Again, everything that you want to try, A3, Intune. Probably the most popular thing that I've been seeing people try lately is A5, primarily for the security capabilities. But also A5 comes with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which is a antivirus EDR client that runs on Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux, Windows Server. So think of competitor would be like CrowdStrike or Sophos, or there's a couple of them out there, but like it's Microsoft version of their antivirus and full EDR solution. A lot of people are really popular on that one. But either way, the key point being purchase services is where you go to try everything. Support. Everyone has free support. Yay. So in here, you purchase, there's kind of 2 support paths. You get free support. That's like free. Then you get paid support. And then there's Premier support. Premier support is where you'll get, you have to buy it, of course, because it's paid. And you would get a CSAM, a customer success account manager, assigned to you to monitor your cases. Oftentimes, you'd only purchase case support, but you purchase additional hours that you can use for training or onboarding or support assistance or advisory reasons on there. But either way, what you get for free is support. So anything that you have, that services that you have or purchase, Microsoft gives you free support. So in here, come down to new support request. Follow the guides in here. Can't install Office, that's a good one. Most of them will say, I'll say custom domain. You just type in something in here. It's going to do a search for solutions, and you may help you. This is just looking at our documentation, but if you need to open it, it's kind of like, we want you to look at our docs first before you contact somebody. But down on the bottom, if you click contact support, follow the guide in here, inputting your phone number and reasons, and follow this, and eventually it'll say contact me. You could choose either a call me back or an email, and they'll get back with you on that. In here, what I really like is they say phone, so 27 minutes. So this is like telling you your wait time. So you can expect to have a call back in 27 minutes versus an email as a 1-hour reply. I'm going to go out and encourage you, if you're having an issue, do the phone, like, because they're going to get on a phone with you and they're going to help you. Email, I've noticed they play this ping pong game back and forth. So if you have a less urgent issue, go the email. If it's like, hey, you know what, we're kind of blocked on this and we're really like blocked, like we can't do things unless there's other stuff, do the phone, because the more immediate engagement on that. So that's support. Keep moving on. Settings. This is where you can add your own custom domains. Again, this is a lot like Azure Active Directory. Again, it's Microsoft. We got like 3 or 4 different ways of doing everything. So you can do it here or through Azure Active Directory. I like to do it through Azure Active Directory as opposed to here. One of the ways that you can do here is buy a domain. You can add a domain. This will actually help you set up the other DNS records for email and other stuff that you have. So either way, I just like to show the other way. The next one down, there's lots of stuff in here. I'm kind of hitting the high level things. We've got about 15 minutes left. Org settings. This is a really good one. So by default, most things are enabled, the most popular stuff. But go through here, spend some time looking at your settings. There's lots of stuff in here. So basically, whiteboard, go and look at your whiteboard settings in here, and they'll talk to you about that. You don't have to go and necessarily turn things on to make them work. Just pretty much everything's on and enabled by default to make everything work. That simple fact of assigning a license turns on the bulk of everything. There's a couple of tabs up here for security and privacy, an organizational profile where you can save like your banner and your theme, and you can upload some custom branding for your organizations and stuff. So spend some time in organization settings. Setup. These are some wizards for setting up stuff. These are kind of, I would encourage you to go through and look at these. They talk about kind of everything. It's a good, hey, I don't know where to begin. These wizards are a great way of kind of beginning on that sense. Setup reports. This is awesome. I'm not going to show you productivity score. I'm just going to go to usage. So this is great to look at your usage, or think of this as your engagement. And it shows you your reports from the last 7 days, 30 days, 60 days, and 180 days. We don't store data beyond 180 days. I often get that question. So that's just not something that Microsoft does. It's 180 days. So it's going to show you your usage. So active users across the top. Again, this is my demo tenant. I don't have a lot of people. I'm still using the same account. So you're not seeing a whole lot. If you were to go and look at this usage data, you would see a lot more. And then we've got all these tiles. So this is active users and all M365 services. Here's active users of M365 apps. That's Office. That's the Office 365. Email, Teams. You get to kind of see OneDrive for files in here. SharePoint, Office activations. One I want to call out is Skype for Business. If you're using Skype for Business, you shouldn't. It actually gets retired. So Skype for Business Online retires next month in July. So if you're using Skype for Business Online, you need to migrate those users to Teams. If you get stuck or have questions, proxy those back. I'm happy to kind of answer questions around Skype for Business to Teams migrations. It's pretty simple to do. But in here, if I want to look at usage in this, like Teams activity, click this View More button. So I see that I have 4 active users. I can click the View More, and it's actually going to show me, you know what, I don't like Teams. There's a better one that I actually wanted to show you. OneDrive files. This is always the cool one. So I have 54 files stored. Of course, you will have hundreds, if not thousands. But what I like to look at in here is it's going to show you all of your users down here at the bottom, how many files, how many active files, and storage used. So this is a great way to kind of get a overall great snapshot of your overall usage of your students, faculty, and staff's usage of OneDrive for Business. And again, you can export this out to Excel and look at it and stuff. So really awesome. A lot of great reporting in there. Health. So kind of moving on the far left side, I'm going to kind of speed up a little bit. Service health. This is a great way, online services. We have outages sometimes. We have advisories. We have code defects. We have problems sometimes. And so this is an easy way for you to come in here to figure out, hey, is something working? Is there a known issue? And so we'll post advisories, we'll post incidents. You can kind of see all of these and then a history of which ones that they had. You could certainly click into them and they'll tell you more detailed information about it. So anytime, think of this as your car's dashboard. You have lights and stuff like that alerting you if something's wrong, the check engine light. This is like the check engine light of your Microsoft services of what's going on. And again, this is in the health node down here under service health. Windows release health. They just added this. This is awesome. This used to be in some rogue doc that was very difficult to find. Well, now they added it because everyone wants to kind of know, hey, 21H1 just came out. Windows 10, what are the known issues with this? And you can come in here and say active release resolve. You can view. This is where it's going to show you resolved, what issues, what build version they've been resolved in. You can click on it. It's going to tell you more details. This is awesome. This is basically telling you your Windows health of your device. And you come into the history. It's going to show you all of that and then information. So it shows it for all of the Windows versions all the way through here. This is a great way to stay up to date on all of your Windows health release. On the left-hand side, probably my most favorite thing that I use all the time is Message Center. Message Center is like your inbox for your Microsoft 365. We're a cloud service. And so much changes happen in terms of updates, enhancements. We're fixing this, we're adding this, we're doing all of these different things. And so it becomes often overwhelming to stay abreast, keeping your technical competence. I struggle with this. So one of the primary ways that I stay engaged about everything going on is Message Center. And so in here, we detail everything that is being current. So on the left-hand side, you have a list of, whatever, Cortana now available for EDU customers. And the service was posted in Teams and it shows you various things. If I click on it, it's going to show you, more details on the right-hand side. That's awesome. You can read about all of that. But I don't come in here and look at all of this. Instead, what I do is I actually get a weekly digest of all of the changes in the last week. And so in order to get that digest, and again, these digests come out relatively around noon on Monday. I block off 30 minutes of my calendar on Monday just to go through that. It's probably the most primary way that I stay up to date of everything going on. So if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, I strongly encourage you, come in here, Message Center, go to Preferences. On the right-hand side, click Email. And in here, you can select to receive notifications for your email in here and select your services that you want. So here's the link for it right here. Send me a weekly digest about services I select. And of course, I have to know everything about everything. So I have everything selected in here. And so I get that weekly digest. And again, I go through and look at that that's how I stay technically aware of everything going on. So strongly encourage you guys to do that. That's the best thing to keep kind of everything going. There's a couple other nodes in here around product feedback. If you want to submit product feedback or what people submitted is in there. Directory sync status, that's your on-premise connector. Some other different stuff. I've shown you more of the high-level things in all of this to kind of get you up and going. Call it a jump start, a general orientation of what's going on. What did I not cover? Fast track. Oh, I already covered fast track stuff. I covered school data sync. That's kind of the one over the world. I'm going to go and start looking at the chat questions. If there is anybody that has any verbal questions, I would like to encourage you to unmute your microphone. It looks like Craig has his hand up. Craig, do you want to unmute your microphone and ask some questions? I'll take questions as long as you guys have questions. So I'm good for the next 30 minutes. I think I can answer everyone's questions. So Craig, what's top of mind?
So really, I just have I have one staff member who their email address, I've got in my domain, but their email address automatically went to the onmicrosoft.com/our domain, and I can't figure out how to get that changed.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so like we get delivery unavailable messages all the time.
So yeah, easy way to change it. Go into active users here. Let's see. I'll pick this Earl dude. But you could come in here and manage their username and email right here. And this is where you can change their domain and username. So you could change their alias right here.
Okay, I've tried that, and the drop down arrow is not an option. So
the drop down arrow was not an option. Manage username, like what for the list here of domains?
yeah, it won't let me change that. I can change their username, but the domains, it's like grayed out. It won't let me change it.
Oh, okay. The reason is you got to come back to Azure Active Directory. I covered this earlier, but I kind of glossed over it. Active Directory, come down to where it says custom domain names. And I don't know, pick one. Oh, I can't do that one. Make sure you select it as make primary. So your custom one has to be listed as make primary.
Okay, I'll change that.
Should not be your primary. That's the key thing. So there's a column over it says primary. See, it has the checkbox. It's kind of faint, but that one should be on your custom domain. It should not be on the one that says on Microsoft.com. Once you set that to your make primary, then you're able to edit, create, manage users with that custom domain.
Okay, I can check that.
Yeah, and if you get stuck, feel free to contact whomever, and they can get in contact with me or open a support ticket and they'll help you with that. Sometimes there's some wonkiness with synchronized accounts from on-premise, so probably your best bet would be to open a support ticket following the steps I showed you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Good question. Anybody else have any questions? Feel free to unmute your microphone. I'm just reading through. Margie, I'm trying to go through there. Was there any questions specifically?
Yeah, well, so the first question, it was when you were talking about Azure Active Directory about support. So is there support for Azure Active Directory? And so I think you kind of touched on that with fast track stuff, but is there, if someone needed support, what would they do?
Yeah. So again, Fast Track is an enablement service, so they're going to help you deploy your products. They're not support. Be very, very clear. If you need support, like Craig was having that problem, for him, hey, he's still having the problem. He should come in here, go down to support node and go to new service request and open a support ticket like I was showing. That's how you get support for that. Fast Track again is an enablement. They're going to help you deploy and set up your products. They're not going to be your support.
And yeah, sorry, I was scrolling a little out of order. So I think you answered this, but it said, what happens if I change the primary domain after we have already been using the default? So
if you make primary, nothing.
Yeah, okay.
If you do that make primary like I was showing you, nothing. That just adds the capability to create and use that custom domain.
And then I know that this is next week's session on Azure Active Directory, but the question was, how do we deal with local domain joined devices versus Azure joined devices? We have both, but there doesn't seem to be an easy way to convert from local to Azure to be able to use Intune.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't. So I cover this in great depth in my Intune session. Let me kind of walk you through this. I think you know this, but like for the sake of the group, because this is a really great question. So in here, if I come into Azure AD and I go to devices, I have to explain this often. Here's a list of all my devices that are Azure connected. A device can be Azure connected in one of 3 different ways. It could be and this join type here shows this. So as you look through this column, it could be Azure AD join. That's where the domain ownership is to Azure. So when an end user logs into that device that's Azure AD joined, he's authenticating directly with Azure. All he needs is all that person needs is an internet connection. They don't it's domain joined directly to Azure. The other way is hybrid Azure AD joined. I hate the word hybrid because it's so overloaded and confusing. All that this simply means is you have your on-premise domain. Your Azure AD Connect tool, the one that I showed you, is synchronizing users. It also synchronizes devices up into Azure. And what that provides that device is an Azure identity. Effectively, it's an SSO token, so that when a user logs into this device, that device is still managed, be it on-prem. They still have to have direct line of sight to the domain controller to log in. It's still receiving group policy. It just has an SSO token associated with it. And so when that user navigates to office.com or anything that uses their Azure identity, they'll have single sign-on. They won't be prompted again. So that single sign-on capability is fabulous because saves the end user's time. It's also great in the sense of having that capability enables IT a couple of other additional things that are really, really cool. Probably my most favorite is Windows subscription activation. You can retire your KMS. You don't need a KMS anymore if you have a device that's either Azure AD joined or hybrid Azure AD joined. All you have to do is simply assign that A3 license. Part of that A3 license is Windows license embedded with it. So when a user logs onto a device that's hybrid Azure AD joined or Azure domain joined, it'll do both an addition upgrade of that device to enterprise or education, so it does addition upgrade and an activation of that device. You don't need KMS. You don't need that whatsoever. Just by having a device either hybrid or Azure AD joined provides that capability. Also, single sign-on provides the ability, if you're using OneDrive, you could configure a policy, group policy, or Intune could deliver it to auto sign into OneDrive and auto enable known folder move. And that's where that device is now synchronizing it files, everything in desktop, documents, and photos up into OneDrive for Business. You're taking advantage of your unlimited OneDrive for Business storage. You're backing up that device. You're protecting it from ransomware. Every file is versioned and available as a backup in OneDrive for Business. Easier to share file. I could keep going on and on about all those things. There's a lot of value that you have out of that particular. But the one thing that you can't do is if you have a device, to answer his question was, I have a device that's on-prem. How do I convert it to be an Azure AD joined? And frankly, you can't. The only way to do that is undomain join it and then domain join it again the other way. And that's just too painful of a process. So I would encourage you to look at like using autopilot, where you will factory reset that device, PC reset it. It's going to take you back to Ubi and then go through the autopilot process or through bulk enrollment. And I cover all of that stuff in my Intune session that I covered. And maybe Margie, you can link to that, or actually, I think I'm doing that presentation in 2 weeks, aren't I? Again?
No, not this
Yeah.
time. Or you're right. Yes, next week. You're right. Next week at 10 a.m. I'm sorry. I was getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. So I'll be covering Intune, how to convert all of that in next week or the week after. I know it's in the month of June in that. So, but the short answer, no. But I had to kind of explain the backstory of all of that.
And Renan had shared earlier, Stephen just posted it again, the link to the upcoming schedule session. So definitely check those out, as there are 2 more in this series, one on Azure Active Directory and one on Intune. So registering for those will make sure you're getting access to that content. So then there was some other questions that had come in. So Scott May asked, what if we don't see Windows release health? Could this be due to no licenses appearing in our admin center? So Scott had earlier mentioned that he doesn't see his licenses, so we suggested opening a support ticket. But if he doesn't see the release health for Windows, is that also maybe tied to him not having any licenses?
Could be. I mean, they just rolled out this Windows release health like a month and a half ago. Maybe it just hasn't rolled out. I thought it did to everybody, but it could be related to your licensing. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah. All right, and then some people are dropping, and then yeah, at this point, if I somehow missed your question, please come off of mute and say it, or come off of mute if you have a question that wasn't asked yet. I think we got through all the questions that have been typed into the chat.
I'll go ahead and answer Scott's question. I think he was, then he says, then you will lose your profiles. I think he was talking about when you PC reset your device.
Oh.
Yeah, your profiles do go away. That's why it's super important I encourage customers for their existing AD join devices, enable hybrid Azure AD join, enable known folder move, enable OneDrive for Business auto sign in. That way it synchronizes everything up into there, PC reset the device, because the device is really hollow at that particular time because their data all resides in OneDrive. Then you can PC reset it, take it back, reprovision it, and then everything will come back down on that particular device, redeploy your applications and stuff. So it's something that it's an orchestrated event and all of that. I cover a lot of that in my next Intune session.
We're trying to incentivize you all to come to the next session.
It's just so much. Like, there's a lot of value that Microsoft provides for free. Understanding how to use that value is often the most trickiest and complicated thing. So it's just, I hope today's session was able to jumpstart your journey. I'm pretty sure you learned at least one thing. If you didn't, shoot me a chat and I'll teach you something. That's my kind of ownership back to you on those particular pieces of it. So I appreciate the opportunity, Margie and team, to be able to come and present. I think that's kind of everything we got for today.
Yeah, and before we take all the way off, just to round out, I'm going to take over presenting here for just one moment. And I will post this in the chat as well. So you had a great session here from Eric. Feels like it's being slow to present. Oh, let me go to the right slide. Okay, so obviously learning this from the IT admin perspective, hopefully this helps you get up and running. But myself and Melanie, who are on today's call, our job is to help support your end users. So your teachers, your staff, your students, and everything kind of in between. So if you get things up and running and you have teachers that need more comfortability with using Microsoft 365, understanding how to use OneDrive, how to use the tools you have set in place, that's where we come in. So I'll be pasting in the chat that information. Oh, sorry, and it's huge because I copied it off the slide. So sorry that it's so large, but hopefully you can maybe take a picture of this slide and then contact us if you are interested in setting up training for your end users. It is free. We just work with you on scheduling the right date and times and the right topics. So we are here to help support your entire stack of users. And then we also want to know what types of trainings would help you. So on the left side of this slide, there is a QR code and a link that I will once again paste in the chat. So if you do have any topics that you would like to see for IT admin training, we'd love to know what those topics would be to help you out. And this survey can help us determine which topics to offer in the future for you all. So again, we appreciate your time and attendance today. And then I will just nudge and see if Stephen wants to say any closing words. And then with that, we'll see you hopefully for the next session.
Thank you so much, Renan. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Margie and Eric as well.
All right. Yeah, I think then we're good. Eric, anything you wanted to close off with? Anyone on my team?
No, that's great. Thank you very much for your guys' time.
All right. Thank you, everyone.